There's something about this time of year where everything starts to feel like it's moving again. Welcome to The Ordinary Effect. I'm your host, Guido Prino. Thank you for joining me on today's show. You see, I see it outside first. The snow's gone, but the ground isn't quite there yet. There's still a bit of dirt, some mud, that in-between stage where things aren't fully clean, but they're no longer frozen. Still getting that sprinkling of snow now and then. And even in that, you can feel the shift. People, they're out more. Cars are moving. Windows are open. There's a kind of quiet return to motion that wasn't there a few weeks ago. And it doesn't take long before that feeling moves beyond what you see and into how people start to act. Plans begin to take shape. Things that were put off over the winter start getting picked up again. You hear it in conversation. Someone's got something coming up. Someone's got someone to go somewhere with. Someone is starting something new. There's just a general sense, even if no one says it directly, that this is the time to get going again. And when all of that starts to happen at once, it creates a kind of energy. Not loud and not overwhelming, but steady enough that you start to notice it. You want to be part of it. Because alongside that energy, there's even another layer to it. You start to see what everyone else is doing, maybe what everyone else has. Not in a dramatic kind of way, just the normal way that we all do now, right? Like you pick up your phone for a few minutes, you scroll without really thinking about it, and within that short time, you've seen enough to get a sense of movement. Someone's celebrating something, or someone's finished something, or someone's on their way to something. And that's where I think the question needs to start from. Why does it feel like everyone else is doing better than you? Because nothing in your own life necessarily changed in that moment. You're still doing what you've been doing. You're still moving through your day the same way that you were before you picked up your phone. But after seeing enough of those moments, close enough together, it begins to feel like there's some, kind of forward motion happening everywhere, and you're just not sure that you're part of it. And the more you think about it, the more specific the feeling becomes. It's not that your life feels wrong. It's not that anything is clearly missing. It's just that what you're seeing seems to have a shape to it. It looks like progress, direction. Looks like something that can be pointed to and recognized as movement. In your own life, in comparison, may not always present itself that way. Because most of the time, your life doesn't feel like a series of clear moments. It feels like you're in the middle of things. You're working, you're handling responsibilities, you're moving through routines, dealing with whatever comes up. There's movement in it, but it doesn't always feel or look like the movement while it's happening. And that's the difference between what looks like progress and what feels like progress, is where everything starts to shift. Because what you're seeing from other people isn't their full experience. It's a moment. It's a moment that's already reached a point where it makes sense on its own. It's a moment that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Something that can be shown and understood immediately. What you're experiencing in your own life is everything that happens before and after those moments. The time it takes to get there. The parts that don't stand out. The stretches where nothing obvious is happening, even though something is still moving forward. And when those two things show up side by side, even casually, it creates a distortion. Not because anything is being misrepresented, but because of how it's being seen. See, the moments that you're seeing don't actually belong together. They come from different people, different timelines, different situations. One person's milestone might represent something that took years. Another person's moment might be a brief highlight in the middle of something much longer and less visible. But when you see them one after another, without any real separation, your mind doesn't sort them that way. It doesn't pause and say, this belongs here, that belongs there. It just takes them as they appear. And what it sees is movement. Not individual movement, but sometimes in something that feels more collective, something that feels like things are happening, progressing, unfolding. And once it feels like that, it's hard not to look at your own position within it. Not in a harsh way, or not in a way that leads to immediate judgment. Just enough, though, sometimes to notice the contrast between what looks finished and what still feels ongoing. Because finished moments are easier to recognize, aren't they? They stand out. They have clarity. They give the impression that something has been completed, achieved, or reached. Ongoing experiences don't have that same clarity. While you're in them, they don't always feel like progress. They feel like effort. They feel like time passing. They feel like things are still being worked out. And that doesn't translate the same way. So, without realizing it, you end up comparing your ongoing experience to someone else's finished moment. And finished moments are always going to look more complete, not because they're better, but because they're easier to see. If you were to take your own life and look at it the same way, pulling out only the moments that clearly represent movement, you would probably see something very different from how it feels today. You would see points of progress. You would see changes. You would see direction. But that's not how you experienced it from the inside. From the inside, you experience everything in between those points. The time it takes, the uncertainty, the repetition, the effort that doesn't immediately turn into something visible. And that's where most of life actually happens. It just doesn't show up the same way. So, when everything gets compressed into a single moment, when you see multiple people, multiple milestones, multiple examples of progress all within a few minutes, it creates the sense that all of that movement is happening at once. And when it feels like everything is happening at once, it naturally raises the question of where you fit within it. But that question isn't coming from a full view of reality. It's coming from a very specific kind of view, one that highlights what is visible, what is finished, what can be easily recognized. It leaves out everything else, and everything else is where most of the story actually is. Because behind every moment that looks clear and complete, there's a longer stretch that looks more like your own experience. Time spent figuring things out, time spent waiting, time spent moving forward in ways that don't stand out. You're not just seeing that part. No one really is. And once you start to recognize that, the feeling shifts slightly. Not because what you're seeing changes, but because how you interpret it begins to open up a bit. The sense that everyone else is doing better doesn't come from a direct comparison of full lives. It comes from comparing different parts of different experiences, all shown at the same time. From the outside, looks like a series of complete steps. From the inside, feels like you're still in the middle of taking them. And those two perspectives can exist at the same time without actually contradicting each other. Which means the question isn't really whether everyone else is doing better than you. It's why it can look that way even when it isn't. Thank you for joining me here on The Ordinary Effect. I'm your host, Guido Perino. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Would love to have you here for every episode. Till then, next time, take care.